Hello, everyone. We are back with the latest edition of the Arbury Road podcast here on this lovely sunny Monday evening in Valencia, at least. I'm joined today, as always, by Paco, and this time we're also joined by Katren Rogers, another Arbury Road regular. How are you guys doing?
Everything good, yeah, Katrin?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Short and sweet. Let's get to it. So the first really disappointing bit of news we've seen this week, you might have seen a video we put up on our social networks earlier about it, is that Erdogan has announced that Turkey are going to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention on the Protection of Violence Against Women. Okay, obviously this is a terrible decision he's made. It sends an awful message to pretty much everyone in the world that they don't care about women in Turkey. They prefer to prioritize their traditional values. Paco, what have you got to say on the topic?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's not too much of a surprise, I would say. The Erdogan for years has proven to not care about, human rights, democracy. I mean, the authoritarian tendency, of course, Turkey are alarming, and of course is a situation that, if we look back at the early 2000s, when Turkey was applying around 2005 to join the European Union, and actually there was the possibility to sort of include Turkey in sort of Western European sphere of interest in terms of human rights and of protection of human rights. Well, now the situation is, of course, really bad. I repeat the statistics that Georgia, in an effective video, mentioned, that in Turkey, like about 35, actually I was reading, even 38% of women suffer from violence during their life, against a European average of 25%. So the European average is already really high, and despite the Istanbul Convention, the Turkey stat is incredibly alarming. Like, it means 4 women out of 10 suffer basically from violence at a certain point in their life from their intimate partner. So the violence happened often in the house, and more than 300 feminicides only in 2020. So yeah, I think these numbers talks. They don't need comments. Yeah, it's really alarming. Let's see what Katrin thinks as a woman. And
yeah, I mean, obviously, I agree. It's extremely alarming and totally not unexpected, from Erdogan. But I guess, I mean, it's sickening, but not surprising that, well, we need to withdraw from this treaty if we're going to defend our, traditional family unit, because we fully recognize that the traditional family unit is based on physical and sexual violence against women. It's just, I mean, yeah, it's horrible. But I guess the other thing that I think about this is that, it was only possible for this to happen because of the changes that have been made in the parliamentary institutions, right? That Erdogan has this new power. And so I think it's an instance of, okay, like, some of our democratic institutions might not be great, but they do prevent things like this from happening. So I think that's something for us to think about when it comes to designing institutions as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because people criticize a lot of these conventions, this international law, soft law, if you will, but at the end of the day, it can hold countries to a certain standard. And I mean, if you're not holding countries to the standard of not committing to not perpetrating violence against women and girls, what sort of standard are you holding them to? But on that note, I'd also like to call out the 6 member states of the European Union who haven't ratified the convention. Bulgaria, Latvia, Lithuania, Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic never ratified the convention. They still don't apparently believe in putting pen to paper on committing to not perpetrating violence against women. So it's not just Turkey.
And let's not forget also those members which are actually also talking about leaving the Istanbul Convention, of course, and all the problems that there are in Poland. What we discussed this widely, both in Poland and in Hungary, So yeah, I would say though that there you can see that to a certain extent the European Union can make a difference, like in the sense in which also these countries are on a similar path to Turkey, but the fact of mid-member, I would say, I hope, will prevent this from happening. And here is where we need to really see something new from the European Union. We need to see some real pressure. Again, we discussed this, but like the European Union seems to be able to put pressure only when it comes to economics. When there is austerity measures to apply. Here we're talking about something way more important. We're talking about human rights. We're talking about fundamental rights and about the same pillars of our society. And here is where I think is a fundamental moment for the European Union in general in the next 5 to 10 years, if we will be able to impose a certain model of society, of civilization, of rights, then the European Union will stand. Otherwise, if it's only an economic union, I think we are doomed to collapse, in my vision.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same problem, as you mentioned, Paco. It's the same problem in Turkey as it is in Poland. It's just Islam instead of Christianity. It's the prioritization of traditional Christian or Islamic values over the fundamental rights of half the people in the population. It's an absolute disgrace. Yeah, hopefully EU countries don't follow Turkey out of the convention, and hopefully those last 6 member states who haven't ratified it do quickly. Just on a slightly more positive and related note, we saw over the last couple of months that a lot of towns in Poland have declared themselves to be LGBT-free zones, where trans people, gay people, lesbians, whatever else, aren't welcome. Now, the European Parliament has responded to this by passing a resolution that declares the entire European Union an area of freedom for LGBTQ people, which is symbolic. It's not binding law, but it's good to see that they can respond in kind to these also non-binding resolutions that we saw in Poland. So that's something. It's not much, but it's something. Okay, let's get on to the main topic I want to discuss today, which is something we mentioned last week, and that is that Spain is planning to trial a 4-day working week. So the trial should affect 30 to 60,000 workers. They're going to use €50 from 50 euro. They're going to use €50 million from European Union funding to help the companies continue to pay the same salary to the workers without a reduction in working hours. So they'll work 4 days, 32-hour weeks for the same salary. You two welfare experts, Katren, I'm going to start with you first here. What do we think of this initiative? Is it all good? Are there any potential bad downsides? Is it going to be one of these policies that massively aids people who have the flexibility and the ability to work less, and then doesn't really help the working class? Give us your thoughts on the whole project.
I mean, I'm in favor of a shortened working hours, whether that means a 4-day week or a shortened working day. In general, we should be reaping the benefits of technological change and automation and productivity growth, which we did for a very long time. And by we, I mean workers, worked less for a very long time until, kind of the 80s, and things have stagnated. So I'm in favor, and I think it's good for a number of reasons, although I can see where there are challenges, both, in implementing the pilot, but also kind of in general, right? But I would say the main benefits are it allows people to be more people. I mean, we talk about kind of defending fundamental human rights, but the right to have free time, to spend time with our families, to be whole human beings is the most important thing just for people's well-being. And even if it was only good for people's well-being, I would support it. But that also flows on to an impact on productivity, right? I mean, people who sort of feel more whole, are more well-rested, more satisfied in their lives, are better workers. And this isn't just an idea, like it's shown that countries where people work less, like I'm based in Sweden. Here in Scandinavia, the working day is shorter, but people are more productive at work. So I think that it's quite clear that there are both sort of welfare benefits for individuals, but also productivity benefits just at work. You know, and on top of that, with all of this free time that people now have, what are they going to do? Go out and go to restaurants and participate in society and buy things, right? I mean, I think I can see that it, if done on a whole of society scale, it has huge potential benefits, both, you know, for individuals' well-being, but also for the economy. I don't know if you want me to go into potential cons, but
yeah, sure. I mean, I have a couple, like off the top of my head, the only issues, I'm also in favor of a 4-day working week. I'd love a 2-day working week if that was a thing. The issues I'd see, sorry, Paco, just before we move on, before we go a little deeper into the pros, let's say, if you have a 3-day weekend, you've got 3 days where there's nobody working in the company. If you have it so that there's the 2-day weekend and a changing weekday day that people take off, this could be slightly difficult in organizing work that's based in groups, let's say. Of course, if I'm a worker for a company and all my work is individual work, there's no problem. But that's not the way companies generally work. There's a lot of teamwork, there's a lot of cooperation. I could see this being potentially affected. Also, there's the argument that pretty much every country is about to or is already in a really serious recession. Is this the right time? Paco, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, so I agree with most of what Katren, with everything Katren said. I would answer to this question that exactly because we are in a recession is perhaps time to...
The perfect time.
Yeah, exactly, apply some brave measures, first of all, I think there is a question that we need to solve, like, is how much people are actually working. There is this stats from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which says that an average US worker works about 8.8 hours per day, so almost 9 hours. In fact, there are, but research says that actually the actual time of work is about less than 3 hours. The time you're actually spending working is 2 hours, 53 minutes. That's what they found. Now, I don't know if this is the exact number. Of course, research is still inconclusive, but I would say that this is more realistic if we think, and I think in every kind of work, at the amount of time that we actually spend in doing, really engage in the activity, that is way lower than even what we realize. And of course, on this, the impact of social network and all the rest, like there is a lot of research about that. So this is the first point to start with. Like, I think we are still suffering from the illusion of an old model where, you know, like you had to work hard and work yourself into the grave to demonstrate something. But in fact, as Katren was saying, all the studies about productivity demonstrates that actually working less, you end up, especially in the long run, to be way more productive. So, and on this, I think is something that in general needs to make us reflect about societal change and how, because there is a recession now, certain change need to happen. As you were saying, like, it's not necessarily the 3-day weekend or the 4-day week. Like, could be another model, could be working 4 hours per day, 5, even less, hopefully in future. No, but the point being that that depends. You can choose different models. I think overall the real point is that really goes together with something that partially the pandemic and partially general tendency in the world are generating in terms of societal change, which is an increase in automatization and robotization of the productive circle. So the actual amount of work we will need is going to be lower, and this should be a good thing, not a bad thing. Like, because most of the people are, we can present it as a bad thing in terms of only some certain people will work and other people won't have anything to do and unemployment will grow. Or we can think about it in terms of we all work less, we all enjoy our life, we all start to think about our lives as a society, not as based on work anymore, or completely on work. Like work is a part of your life, but needs to be together with other experiences, which will make you grow as an individual and as a person and as a human being. And so I think this is really the right direction. So the Spanish experiment is really interesting. And if I'm not wrong, it's the first real experiment on that scale.
The first government-backed project in Europe, at least. I know there have been experiments. I mean, Microsoft did it in Japan in 2019. Shake Shack did it in the US in 2019. There was a project going back as far as 2018 in New Zealand. And all of these were successful projects.
Yeah, I was reading the stats about the Japan project, actually, you were mentioning, and they were saying around almost 40% of increase in productivity of the workers. So that's really big. But so we can think about this like we will see the stats after the Spanish experiment if they will actually confirm the research. But yeah, it's like it goes without saying that this will have an impact on the economy. We will have more people working if this is the direction we take. Like, so work, you know, there is an Italian slogan that is actually from the 60s, working less, working everyone. Like, so everyone needs to work, even if we work less. And I mean, it goes without saying that if everyone works, the economy as a whole will be more, you know, you will have more consumers, more sort of in a Keynesian sense of multiplier, like more transactions, more, and everything should be, the economy should be really increasing, growing.
Katren, anything to add there?
No, I mean, I completely agree. I guess it's all about implementation as well, right? And I'm sure, well, I can't say I'm sure, but I strongly anticipate that this pilot will support, you know, the study so far, right? But then it's about making sure that we don't sort of make a 4-day week for people who work in certain types of industries, and then everyone who's working in service industries still has to, you know, work more for less money and, you know, in a different way. So I think there's certainly challenges when it comes to spreading the benefits of working less to everybody who works in all types of jobs. And that will take more thinking, right? But, you know, full steam ahead sounds good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's worth mentioning the challenges, but I mean, these things are always changing. There are going to be challenges facing up every new policy, every new suggestion. It's not a reason not to try. And when you've seen successful projects pretty much across the board, across the world that have tried a similar try like this, we should absolutely be pumping more money into trying out this scheme. All right. So next up, okay, we want to talk a bit about the vaccines, but first, I think it's worth mentioning there were general elections in the Netherlands over the weekend. The caretaker Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, who we highlighted here a couple of months ago when his entire cabinet quit in disgrace, well, they've won the election again. So they will probably be going into coalition with the centrists, who are the D66 party, who became the second biggest. But the good news from our point of view is the emergence of Volta, a pro-European, anti-populist party that are composed mainly of young professionals and students, won 3 parliamentary seats, which is their best ever election result. So we look forward to seeing more of them and maybe even collaborating with them, hopefully in the future. What do you think, Paco?
Yeah, podcast would be interesting. Perhaps we can try to, yeah, we miss an expert in politics in the Netherlands at the moment. So like definitely worth trying to contact them.
It's a really interesting one because generally right-wing populism has a place in Dutch politics and is usually have good elections. So it's great to see the left wing having a good elections. Okay, let's get on to the vaccine. So yesterday, one of the European commissioners said that the EU do not need Russian vaccines. So my immediate response to that is, how can you say that, given the mess that we're in? We have commitments with producers who haven't held up their side of the bargain. We have cases skyrocketing across half the continent. And it just seems like it's anti-Russian sentiment at the worst possible time. Katren, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it seemed to me that certainly national leaders in the EU were trying to depoliticize this. You know, obviously people didn't, thankfully, governments and the EU didn't want to bring in a vaccine before it had been proved efficacious, and that was a good thing, right? But at the same time, sort of once it has been, there seemed to be a willingness to diffuse that political tension, but this has kind of gone the other way. And I think if you put it on top of, you know, what's going on in Slovakia and the kind of political crisis there around purchasing Russian vaccines and how this is seen as, you know, anti-West or not pro-West or whatever, it seems to becoming more politicized, which is not a good thing, because this is a health crisis that we need to deal with. Like, and as you say, it's not like we've got enough doses for everybody in Europe secured, right? So too early to say that we don't need Russian vaccines.
Yeah, big time. Paco?
I agree in general terms. Of course, then when it comes to the Sputnik, there are some doubts, I guess, that have been
EU now have found that it's
by
the EU have declared it effective. You know, they said, oh, it's okay to use, it's effective enough, but we're still not going to take it.
No, it seems definitely to be worth. I know that in Italy they're thinking about producing it. I would say, like, here the general problem in my vision is, apart from all the mess, AstraZeneca, is it effective? It's not. There is always this sort of giant bureaucratic machine of the European Union, which seems to be, again, because we are still through the process, but like if compare, for example, the UK, you know, that was definitely not a good image for Europe, like not a good, the fact that the UK were able to, they are basically, well, if we look at the data, the UK right now, there are really few cases, they are going down so much. And so that's definitely not a good spot for the EU. To me, the real question here is why, and this is something we need to ask, I think, for the future. And I think the answer is we need more political union. Why the European Union was not able to produce its own vaccine? Why do we need to decide between, you know, American multinationals and, you know, countries like Russia or China who are not democratic? Why, you know, I think we have the resources, we have the intelligence to, you know, be, just decide our own destiny without relying on other people. And especially because, again, going back to the example of Cuba, the vaccine should be free and for everyone. It should be produced by the state, in my opinion, not by a multinational or in a state process, sort of, process controlled by the state in a situation like this.
Would you rather a free vaccine from an authoritarian state like Cuba, though, Paco?
Well, you know, like my heart is red, so
I hope it's not that red. I hope it's not that red.
Yeah, it's true. I think it depends, you know, like in terms of like now Cuba, there is one question if we talk about the regime and politics, authoritarianism, and then of course it's something we can at the present moment, of course, condemn. Another thing is we look at the Cuban revolution in a historical perspective. Another thing, if we look about public health, for example, that is something that in Cuba is excellent, has been excellent for the past 30, 40 years, like has been a model for other countries. And they have been exporting doctors and providing free Medicare to everyone. And of course, like, you know, we're talking about something different, but like in the US, we know there is no healthcare, and people, despite the US being incredibly richer than Cuba, no? So my answer is like, yeah, you know, is not black and white in a way. Like it's, if we think about welfare, Cuba is way more advanced than the US.
That's definitely debatable. That is definitely debatable. Healthcare wise, okay, the US, they're not leading anyone anywhere, definitely. But I don't know if Cuba would be the model. having said that, they do produce world-leading doctors regularly from Cuba. This is a very well-known fact.
I was talking about the healthcare, not as a general, as a model. Like I was talking specifically about the healthcare.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get too many answers on the vaccines, but yeah, the commission have said that they have enough doses that in theory we could all be vaccinated by Bastille Day, the 14th of July. I've written that down because I do not believe it. And we will be back on the 15th of July bringing this up, I'm sure, no doubt. But for today, I think we're going to leave it there on the vaccines. And we're going to take this opportunity to remind everyone and to invite everyone to an important event that we're running a live stream on Thursday, where we're going to be speaking to two co-authors of a new book that's investigating crisis management and crisis reaction in the world, focusing on the European Union's reaction to COVID, the vaccine rollout, everything. And we're also going to be joined by one of the world leading experts on crisis management. So anyone who wants to join us for that, we're going to be live streaming Thursday at 6:30 Central European time. And the video will be there for the following weeks as well. So please join us and you'll see the invites on Facebook. And thanks a million to Paco and Katren. That was a really, really nice chat as always.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Pleasure was all mine. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.